Hello and welcome to Ex Cult Ed, the podcast where I share my experiences, thoughts and feelings after leaving the truth, otherwise known as the 2x2 way, the fellowship, the one true way. You get the picture. My hope is that in sharing this it will be cathartic for me and perhaps make you, dear listener, feel less alone if you've been through or are going through something similar. This is my story. Back by popular demand, I have my esteemed guest, who I am not naming.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back.
So I was thinking this time, because a lot of my episodes are quite heavy and about all the negative effects of being in the cult, I was thinking maybe we could talk about some of the good memories we have. Because I know there was a lot of positive things growing up that came from it.
I agree as well. Yeah, It's something that we don't often think about, is it? It's because the bad things are just front and center in our lives, and of course with everyone, the good things we often ignore.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact is we chose to leave, so a lot of our focus is on why we chose to leave and the relief in getting out and feeling that freedom to do all these things. But there's also things that I miss about it, things that I enjoyed or look back on fondly, and I think it's good to also appreciate the beauty in the childhoods that we had.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
And that's not to glorify it in any way. I don't recommend being in that, but
But there's often ways you can find community like we had that's much more healthy but still has the good aspects of the communities. So,
well, what would be one of the positive things for you? What would be your number one thing that...
I think exactly like you, I would say, would be the annual meeting that we had together, the large meetings. We called them conventions.
I thought you meant special meetings. Okay, no.
Not those.
You said meetings, you mean the like whole gathering away bit. Yeah.
I found them really good. The worst part of them was, of course, the interminable meetings that we had to have, and we had to be still and we had to listen and we couldn't do anything. But otherwise, getting to know other people that we hadn't seen for a whole year, catching up with, of course, cousins and friends and family.
That was how I met you.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, we did.
That's how most people meet each other in that cult, I would say.
Yep.
That said, though, do you think you could sit through a convention now?
No.
I have fond memories of convention and I love that I went. Like, I love that that was part of my childhood, but it's not something I could ever go back to.
Yeah.
I couldn't sit through 6 hours of meetings again.
No. And of course, because we've grown away from the cult, all the people that we used to love catching up with, I'm guessing we wouldn't really feel as close to as we used to.
We thought we had these genuine connections and loved catching up, but I feel like if I went to a convention, I couldn't be my authentic self around all these people, and I would just feel like it's all such a show and fake. And I guess how I felt that I would feel in the world when I was in the cult, now I would feel around those people.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I am my authentic self now.
Yep.
And I would hate to have to pretend around these people.
Exactly, yeah. I agree with you 100% there. I think that the tables have turned, and where we used to be a bit of afraid of the world and used to find safety in the cult and in conventions, it's the other way around now. Prefer to be where we are in life now and have nothing to do with those conventions. So, not that the people were bad. I think a lot of the people that we grew up with may have been quite nice, but we never really got to know them either.
Yeah, not on that level. I guess in the moment you think you know them really well.
Yep.
But I do like that we can look back on convention and say that that's something that we really enjoyed then.
Yes.
But something that we wouldn't enjoy now.
Yep, that's right. So what other...
Well, what about convention? I mean, we can dig into that a bit more.
Yep.
Apart from the getting to know people and meeting new people, for me, it was the meal times and especially supper time. I found supper time to be really special because you'd get out from one of these infernal meetings and there would be 400 people that would all go to the dining shed together, and because all the other meals we had 2 sittings to split up the people a bit and have more space, but supper time...
It was all together.
Yeah, we didn't need the cutlery and the plates in the elbow room, so we all just bunched up on these benches. You'd go in and everyone would just squish up and make space, and it was very cozy because it was dark and we were all in this shed together, just squished up on these little benches, and someone at the end of the table would pour it wasn't coffee, it was chicory.
Yeah, well, at the convention that you and I went to, there'd be different drinks at other conventions around the world.
Well, see, I grew up in South Australia, so I didn't actually go to that one for many years.
Yep.
The one that you went to,
yep.
But
it was the same
vibe.
Oh, nice.
Everybody is in there, squished up, and as opposed to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, supper was very loud. Everybody was all happy and talking, and there's just that like rumble of noise and laughter around you, and all these people just sharing something. It was great.
It's just comforting, wasn't it? It was really nice. Yeah. I think people were louder then because just like you would have felt coming off the last meeting out of 3 meetings for the day, everyone was just really relieved.
Yeah.
They would never say it. They'd be talking about how good the meetings were, but I think they were just relieved it was all over and they could get together and chat.
Because I was just going to say before you said that actually that the conversation at supper was a lot less God-focused. It was just chat.
Yes.
Whereas the conversation at lunch and breakfast and dinner, everybody was kind of pensive because you had to be in the mood for the next meeting that's coming up.
Yep. And
you
talking about how wonderful the last meeting was, of course.
Yeah.
You had to mention that. So.
And all quiet and like, oh, I'm going to go back to my tent and pray after this, or I'm going to go and read, or I might go for a walk. Yep. Whereas supper, it's like, all right, we're done.
It's party.
Yeah. And then all the young ones would go for a walk, and it was great. Another thing I loved about convention was the porridge. I don't know if you grew up with porridge at yours, but they would have these big, I don't know, do you call them vats?
Yes.
And there would be so much porridge, and they'd be there like stirring it in this massive big vat, because enough porridge for 400 people is a lot of porridge.
Yep.
You've got to estimate how much salt they went through.
It would have been a huge amount. Yeah. Yep.
And just the smell of it in the morning and the stew.
Yes, it was so nice. It was terrible to wash when you're in the washing up group, but it was great to have.
Oh, it was so hot in those kitchens. See, I didn't have to because that was a man's job.
Yeah.
But even just walking through the kitchen, I was like, how do these men stand in here in the heat and sweat in their fancy clothes as well? It's not like they were in the... Because we had to obviously clean everything, and these kitchens had boiling hot water.
Yep.
And all the men are there doing the washing up in their Sunday best, like in suit shirts and suit pants.
Yep.
No one would like take off their shirt or put on a singlet or something. They'd just sweat away like, this is great.
Yep. And the biggest leeway you had was you could take your tie off.
Oh, yeah, so, wow. And then you'd have all the women, though, setting the tables, walking around there in their pretty skirts and really high heels with bunches of plates and cutlery and everything.
They did a good job not to have massive incidents. So.
I had quite a few different jobs. I started off on cutlery.
Yep.
So I was, when I was really young, I was drying cutlery, so the wash-up men would pass me the cutlery in these little buckets, and then I'd tip it out on tea towels, and I'd have these little gloves on and sort them all into 16 in each box, and then the older girls would take a box and go set a table with it.
Yeah, okay, yep. All right. So you were working with others there and chatting with them?
Yeah, I was, but I was very young. There wasn't many my age doing it because the really young people, they put them with other people.
Yep.
But that was another thing I loved about convention, was turning up and finding out what my job was.
Yes.
I loved having a job.
I love that as well. That was great. So I don't know the jobs that I had when I was sort of like too young to really worry about that, but I remember being one of the waiters, so that was always good. We had to be really good at making teas and coffees.
Was that daunting?
It was the first year, but I soon got into it, and I recognised the skills that I needed then and learned how to do it properly. So you never really got praised, but I never got any blowback, which is good. So.
It's interesting too, because these people are all sort of your friends, and then how do they treat you as a waiter? Because at your convention, it's a bit different to how mine was. growing up, they just had like tea and coffee boys, and they'd just walk around with a pot just yelling out coffee, coffee, and if anyone wanted one, they'd put their hand up.
Yep.
Which is quite dangerous because these young boys would come in between people with this boiling hot teapot and pour the coffee, or you turn around with your cup and hold it there and they'd pour it. So I don't know how many people got burned, whereas your system was the waiter would stand at the end of a table and make everybody's drinks as they
asked for
which
them.
I found that system so much slower. It was like you got to the last, because there's 16 people, you got to the 16th person after they'd finished eating.
Yes. So you had to be quick. Yeah. I remember just going for it flat out right at the start because I wanted to get through halfway before that all finished. So you just go down and you try to remember four drinks and go make them. The other four, by that side had been finished, around the other side.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Should have put that on a job application.
Hard work.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like people actually treated the waiters like waiters.
Yes. Yep.
Which was interesting.
Basically, that was what it was. But of course, everyone was friendly because.
Like, where's the service here?
Yeah.
I don't have my tea yet.
Quick.
Let me speak to the manager. Who assigned you this job, boy?
All right. I'm firing myself.
I wish, because were you on first sitting? Because we always had 2 sittings.
Yep.
Were you ever on first sitting or?
I was actually. I think I was mostly on first sitting.
That would just I couldn't
because all of the good waiters were on first sitting. So.
Oh, you were a good waiter.
I was a good waiter.
Why'd they put the bad ones on second?
I don't know, but I never was good enough to be on the workers' table, so I was glad about that.
Oh. I just couldn't imagine standing there being so hungry and watching everyone eat and having to make the drinks.
Yes. Oh, that was fine for me. It didn't worry me whatsoever. So.
Did it annoy you about the time though, because you know that you'd then have to eat at second sitting, whereas everyone else could eat at first sitting and go off walking and you'd miss out?
Well, it didn't worry me too much. A little bit. The one thing that really concerned me was what happens if there wasn't enough room for me at second sitting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what happened with that? I always wondered that too, because you see how it worked was everybody would line up outside. And I say line up, I mean like if you've seen cows trying to get into a dairy, that's how it was.
That's how it was, yeah.
And they would often open the door and just say like oldies first, or like people with children.
Yep.
In the meantime, other people would have run in and like put an apple on a plate to reserve their plate, or anyone who'd been working in there, or they'd put a knife across a plate or like cross cutlery on a plate to be like, this is reserved.
Yep.
So then when all these people are walking in, they'd make a beeline for a table and then just see, oh no, I can't sit there because somebody's put cutlery there.
Yeah, that's right. Or all the young kids who'd been working in the dining shed, they were like, I'm sitting here, so it was already half full by the time the doors open.
Yeah, and then there would be these people who would walk in with all of the cattle just charging through, try and find a seat, and there wasn't one because people would want to sit with their friends, and sometimes they just try and slot in anywhere. There'd be like one, people would be like, there's one here, but you'd always see those stragglers in the middle being like, oh no, there's no seat, and then they'd have to go out and wait for second because everyone's just sitting at their seats looking at them like, I ain't giving you mine.
Too bad, unless you're pregnant.
Yeah, not even then. I saw a lot of people with prams have to walk through. Where's the compassion?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Everybody would. It's so funny when you think about it, because we go to these meetings teaching us about how to be kind, and then we'd just be like, every man for themselves to get the food.
Yeah. Who cares about politeness?
Yeah.
The meals were great, weren't they? They were really well done. You didn't like the lunch and tea?
I'd say they were better at your convention than mine was more like cold meats and stuff.
That was lunch. Lunch at our convention was the worst meal. So there was breakfast, which was delicious, and then there was supper, and then there was tea, which was really nice. The convention stew.
See, I don't think our tea was so good.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. I do know. See, I know at your convention they would use the leftover stew and make hash in the morning, which was delicious.
Yes.
And your convention also had scrambled eggs, which we didn't have.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure we only had, although someone's going to correct me because I'm probably wrong, but I feel like we only had porridge and stew and bread.
Yep.
And that was it. Whereas you guys had scrambled eggs and hash and porridge.
Yep.
Which felt so much better.
You had all these different options, yeah.
But as I got older, I found I had to start eating fruit at convention because there was just so much bread and carbs.
Yep.
And you'd just find yourself really blocked up.
That's right. And you couldn't walk around most of the day because you were sitting at convention.
Yeah. You'd feel really
meetings,
bloated, but you'd just want to eat. And eating lollies in meetings, that was fun, getting your little lolly box ready. And
Yeah. We didn't actually have them. My family, we didn't have lollies that much.
Oh, no wonder the meetings were torture for you.
That's right, yeah.
Mine were just like, I'm going to sit down. What's in my lolly box? I've got fantails, I got cool mints, I got some soft lollies.
Good to go.
Yeah.
No.
Wow.
No, that wasn't our thing. So we used to just spend our time drawing.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Wow, no wonder. Okay. And then after I got some jobs in the kitchen, which was a bit stressful.
Yep.
The preacher that was in there with me, she got quite stressed, so that kind of rubbed off on the rest of us. But I was mainly in there making toast.
Yep.
I got another job another year doing salads, and nobody wanted to open the tins of beetroot, so I was just there all the time just opening beetroot and putting it in, because nobody wanted to be around it, because you've got your good Sunday clothes on and you don't want to get beetroot and stain your clothes.
Yeah.
I also got put on cakes, so that was organising all the plates of cakes for supper. So you just get different cakes, cut them up, and then put them all so there's a variety on each plate, which was another thing of supper, right? You look at your table and you look at all the plates and you're like, which cakes do I want to sit near?
Yes, yeah, that's
because I want those ones. And then you'd be sitting there and you'd be like, I really want that cake, but I don't want to take it first. I don't want to look greedy, but I want that cake. And then someone would take it and you'd be like,
oh, you got there first. But also, you remember supper, you'd be looking at the tables to find the best table for all the food.
Yeah.
And then also the best place in the table.
Yeah.
Which is great, because then that means at that supper, you got to sit next to people you otherwise wouldn't sit next to. So you crammed in with other people that you didn't know, and you got chatting with them.
But you know what was annoying? You'd sit right in front of that plate that you wanted to get the good cake or biscuits or donuts. There was one year someone bought heaps of donuts.
2 minutes later, they were gone.
No, it's not that. You sit in front of that spot. You're like, I got my spot at the table. And then everyone's like, shuffle up. We all want to fit. And you're like,
yes.
No, my plate.
So it was all big stools, wasn't it? Big rails that you had to shuffle down on.
Yeah, and so you'd sit in the middle because you'd be like, this is the plate I want.
Yeah.
And everyone would be like, nope.
Off you go.
Push you
You're
down.
right at the end.
Yeah. I sat in the middle of this bench for a reason.
Go around me.
So that was great. And then I remember having to do special plates of cakes for the preachers. So that was a thing.
Yeah. I didn't have that part. So there was special food for them, was it?
Yeah, and the workers would sometimes have these like workers' afternoon teas and that, and they would get their special cakes for them.
Yep.
I remember helping someone else on the jam job. It was like dolloping up jams for the tables.
Okay, yeah.
There'd be jars of jam, but just tidying them up and putting jams together. What do you call it? Like condensing the jams and
together, yeah.
cleaning them up to go out.
Yep.
At my convention, there's so many different jobs. Like there was these little bread boys that would run around and fill up the bread boxes, make sure there's enough bread for everybody.
Yep.
I think your convention had toast.
Yes,
Mine didn't.
I think so,
Well,
yes.
it did because I was standing at a toaster making toast all morning. We're
That
trying
was
to
one of
make
the
toast
jobs you
for
did.
400 people. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Did they have a big toaster machine?
No,
or
it was just a toaster.
standard toaster?
It's a normal toaster. I had to toast it and then just sit them in the oven, I think, to keep them warm.
Yeah, okay.
But it's just so much toast, and I'm just like, ugh.
Again. Yeah.
Another thing that I loved growing up in the cult was the singing.
Yep.
I loved singing. Like, I loved having sings and singing the hymns and getting together and singing in parts. I think there's just something about joining in with everybody else singing the same thing.
Yeah, okay.
Even when I didn't believe, I still loved the
singing.
hymns and
Yep.
the singing. And I think I could still happily...
Sing.
I don't know, because now I haven't sung hymns since I left.
Yep.
So when I left, there was a lot of hymns that stuck in my mind for a while.
Yep.
But I haven't sung any since I left, because when I think back on it now, the words are so strong. Like, they make me very uncomfortable.
Yes, yeah.
Some of the things that we sang, I'm like,
You don't even remember how strong they are, do you? You're just like, what? I actually sang that without thinking
like,
about
I can't believe we just sat there singing, like, thy vows are binding, Lord, on me, I cannot now go back, and then just sat there singing. I mean, it repeats itself. It's just like, I cannot now go back, I cannot now go back.
Yeah.
And, like, we sat there happily just being like, this is great. And all the ones about just us being weak and God being strong and all of that, I don't know.
Yep.
I would love singing the tunes, but I just don't know how I'd feel about the words now.
How triggering it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sure I could do it because I'm in a space where I can look at it objectively.
Yeah.
But I just think I'd be sitting there being like, wow,
Yeah.
can't believe that.
I didn't mind singing myself, but usually the people we sang with, you had to, in the area that I grew up, you had to be very reverent with your singing, which meant singing at about half a beat per second.
Oh.
And it was so slow and just, it did your head in. So
because
wouldn't have been fun.
That's right, because at the morning meetings you would have someone who always started the hymns, and it was based on the pitch that they started with, and also the rhythm.
Yep.
So if they started really high, I remember that being in meetings where someone would start the hymn too high, and then we'd get to the high bit and everyone was trying, and sometimes, I don't know if you ever had it, but I'd be in morning meetings where they'd be like, all right, we're going to have to start that again. Because it's too high.
Yeah. It didn't happen with us mostly because the people who started would never stop. So we just had a few seconds of silence there where everyone was struggling to get that note.
I can't imagine singing them so slow.
Oh, it was terrible. So when if my family ever started it, it was quick. Thank you very much. We got through it very quick.
What else did you like about growing up in it?
So I think a lot of it is community, just being around people who were sort of similar. I think that people subscribe that to, religion and God, but I think most of the reason why people go to churches is just to catch up with people. And I think that's often overlooked, but I would like to have more of that, I think, in my life. Amen.
But that's actually really interesting because I caught up with some of my friends recently, and a bunch of them are Christians.
Yep.
And they were telling me about their churches and how they could just go in thongs and they're really casual. And I'm like, wow, like I just never associated being yourself and going to church.
Yes.
But it seems like there are some less controlling versions of Christianity where you can potentially still be your authentic self and go to church. Whereas when I left, I was just like, this is Christianity. This is not for me. I don't want to be controlled.
And every other church is similar as well.
So I am actually a little bit curious. Like I don't want to join another church at all. I don't think I can bring myself to believe again. But I would be interested to see the atmosphere, because I still have an innate trust for Christians. I trust them because I'm like, I know where you're coming from. I know what you're about. I still have similar morals to them on the most part. So I think that they're a group of people that I can be around. It's just I find it really hard when it's getting to the deeper level of things, like talking philosophy or questioning things. We always used to say, like, faith starts where logic ends. So it's hard to kind of have that logical conversation with some people, but there are others that I've met who subscribe to Christianity who I can have very in-depth conversations with, and that's great. And I'd just like to be around a bit more of that, I think. Yeah,
that'd be great. Because sometimes with Christians, our starting values now compared to a lot of Christians are completely different, aren't they? So a conversation just goes nowhere. Whereas your friends, sounds like it's really good that you can have those deep conversations and start from mutually respectable.
Well, I do think that on the whole, and I don't know if you'd agree, but I'd say my morals still are quite similar to those of most Christians.
I would agree as well, but I would also say that when you look at the deep background of all religions, they all start from the exact same moral standpoint. So
it's more why you do things now. I think my why is different.
Yes.
So, back then I was like, well, because God said so, whereas now I'm like, I just think this makes you a good person.
Yes. So, and I think everyone underneath has the same basic understanding of what's right to do and what's wrong.
But the issue is, for me, it's been really about learning what is right and wrong, because what we were taught was right and wrong growing up is not necessarily what is right and wrong.
No, that's right.
It's very subjective.
That's right. So the basics are all fine, don't hurt other people. But of course, every religion puts all their own things, you have to worship God and you have to do it this way and you have to, which all of that is mostly bunkum. So.
Yeah, well, I've never heard that word before, bunkum.
Okay.
What is that?
It's a common word down our way.
Really? I've never bunkum. Interesting, but say wearing women wearing pants. That was apparently so wrong. Whereas
Yes, yeah.
there's nothing
That's just stupid.
morally wrong with that.
Yeah.
Or having your hair down, or wearing jewelry.
Yep.
Like it's not hurting anyone else.
No,
so
yeah.
I don't see the moral. I think it's just a control thing.
Yeah, definitely is.
Anyway, we're talking about good things though.
Yes. We got back onto that.
Yeah. You're right. It's the community and connecting with people over something that you share.
Yeah.
I think perhaps, or I can't speak for me because I didn't have a happy, stable home as far as parents go, but I do think that there is a lot of focus on that.
Yep, which is always a good thing as well. Yes.
Yeah, although I still think that kids aren't dumb and they can tell if their parents aren't happy but are trying to be.
And I think I believe that the rates of, marital issues would be roughly the same in the cult that we grew up in, except it's just papered over, just like all the issues that they're facing at the moment with CSA. It's just the veneer on it. It just means that everyone thinks that every marriage there is amazing. Yeah. Everyone's in love still. And happy families when it's probably not, unfortunately. So,
I have found it really hard to get people to talk about that.
Yes, yeah.
Did you like special meetings?
Not really, no. I can't say why. Well, I liked actually...
Because no lollies.
Probably. But I liked having lunch at special meetings. I don't know why, but you'd have lunch in a car.
Yeah, lunch was the best bit because we'd all go back to our cars and you'd get to talk to people. And it was all about, I know as a kid, it was when you pulled into the car park, it was like, who are we parking near? Who's in the car nearby so I can talk to them when we have lunch?
Yes.
It's like, no, you don't want to park here, Mum. Can you go over there?
Can you go somewhere else? This person's more interesting.
Yeah.
But do you reckon we could have got the exact same thing at a really nice picnic?
Definitely, yeah.
Yep.
That's it. It's the thing that I have fond memories of is a bunch of people coming together and it didn't matter what age they were. I love the fact that we as young people could and enjoyed talking to old people and people of all ages, whereas I don't know if I'm wrong in saying I feel like in the world that we're in...
Us worldly people?
Yeah, I feel like people kind of stick a bit more to their age groups, which makes sense because there's a lot more people to choose from, whereas in the cult there was a lot less people. So you were forced to sort of be around all sorts of people of all different ages and genders and whatever. Whereas if you have access to so many people, I guess naturally people are going to look for ones of their own ages and...
Because they're similar.
Yeah, whereas I love talking to people, whoever they are, because I find similarities with myself and anyone. In fact, I have a listener emailing me who is definitely quite a bit older than me. I can't remember his exact age, but I love every time I get an email from him. And my replies are definitely not as long as his. But yeah, I really appreciate all the emails that I'm getting. I have a really good relationship with my elderly neighbours and elderly people in the community, and I'm actually trying to organise a picnic coming up, which is probably the first one of its kind that I've done since leaving, and that will have a bunch of people my age and a bunch of older people, and I mean like in their 70s and 80s and potentially 90s, and I'm hoping that they'll all get along. I'm sure they will.
Definitely will, and I think you've stolen one of my ideas as well, because I was going to say the exact same thing, that speaking with different age groups was always something that I never really understood how important it was, but when you do leave the cult, you sort of have to find those people of different age groups to talk to, don't you?
When I invited my older neighbours to the picnic, they were like, oh, we'd love to come as long as us oldies would fit in with the young folk. And I'm like, of course you will, whereas I think maybe in the cult, the old people didn't question that so much because it was like, you have to hang around with us oldies.
Yes.
You should respect your elders.
Yes.
You should learn from us.
And you should listen to us.
Yeah, whereas the older people in the world seem surprised that younger people want to hang around with them. Whereas I'm like, no, it's great. They're from it's like they're from a different planet.
Yes.
Because they're from a whole different world, and I love to learn about it.
They have different outlooks. They speak differently, and they have a lot of different stories that you would otherwise never hear of.
Yeah, and all their advice and experience, it's very interesting. And also, I mean, I'll be old one day, and I hope that younger people will still want to talk to me.
No.
Yeah, well, if they don't, I'll walk around and I'll tell them.
Yeah, hit them with your stick.
Yeah. But no, I actually find older people to be some of the most vibrant, interesting people. I don't see a difference between them and people my age, honestly, in conversation. I think inside they're still the same.
Exactly right. Yep.
It's just the container that's changed.
I think we're all 20. Once we get older, we're all 21 mentally, and it's just our bodies that change. Yeah.
Well, there you go. So yeah, I love that part of it. I want to say we were around a diverse group of people, but we weren't. We were around a very limited, diverse group of people.
Exactly right. Yes, yeah. But it was always the older ones that were interesting, weren't they? Even then.
Yeah. I learnt a lot from the older people.
Yeah.
And not just like, obviously they will tell you all about their faith and stuff, but just gardening and all sorts of things.
Yes, yeah.
Different.
I remember having a group at school when I grew up, and there was a lot of younger kids at my age who really struggled to talk with groups of older people that we had to go and visit to ask questions of. So they just gave me pen and paper and said, you do it, we're doing our own thing. So yeah, I really enjoyed talking with the older person that we had to interview.
Yeah, wow. So, all you say to do is like, tell me your story.
Yeah. He was old and he was blind, and they invited all of those older people to go and see a art installation at school. So he was like, paintings? I can't see them.
Yeah.
So I walked around for about 2 hours holding his hand and pointing out and describing paintings to him.
Oh, wow.
While all of my friends were laughing at me. But it was fun.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
So nice. I mean, I loved the things and the potlucks and the kind of get-togethers we'd have, because we did have them a bit, especially my mum.
They disappeared over time though, didn't they? When you were younger, did you have them a lot?
No, well, yes, I did, but they didn't disappear over time for me because Mum was someone who organised them a lot.
Yes.
And see, recently I met up with someone that I knew from my youth in the cult, and she reminded me of how Mum organised things so much. I'd forgotten how much she did.
Wow.
But, I mean, we organised kitchen teas for people, and we had these funny games nights with like all of these split people into teams, and you have a suitcase of clothes and they have to line up, and the first person in the team has to put on all the clothes in the suitcase while hitting a balloon, and you're trying to tie on an apron, and then they have to run to the table, cut a piece of chocolate with a knife and fork, eat the chocolate, run back, take off all the clothes in the suitcase, put them back, and then pass the balloon to the next person.
I would have loved living in your area, I reckon.
So the games like that, and we had like donuts tied to a string on the clothesline, and you had to try to eat the donuts, and we did the apples in the water, and you have to try and get an apple with your head.
Okay.
And then these other sorts of fun games like that.
Wow, yeah. Your mum was one of those people who used to be able to make fun of anything.
She organised a lot.
Yeah.
And I would love to start doing. I guess I thought that people in the world wouldn't enjoy those things as much, just the good old-fashioned fun. I guess I thought that people my age would think it's lame, because I got out and I was like, oh, I guess the only way people have fun is alcohol.
Yep.
I felt a bit naive, I guess, and out of it because I don't drink alcohol very much.
Yep.
And so I was like, oh, I guess people won't see me as fun. And if I try to organise, imagine if I organise a thing, and I love all the old games. Like, we used to play round robin with the table tennis table.
Yeah.
Just cops and robbers type games where you have the teams, or like the stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
Games like that I'd love to play as an adult. I'd love to get a bunch of adults together and be like, all right, we're going to play stuck in the mud. We're going to play cops and robbers. And
that you think that other people might call childish.
They might find it lame, but I reckon the right bunch of adults would have so much fun doing it.
I think they would. And I think you're also, from what I hear, you're carrying on that proud tradition. So I'm really proud of you.
Well, I'm trying to start it now, but so you're part of the starting of the tradition.
Yes.
Yeah, do you have anything else?
No, I think we've covered a lot of all the ideas I had anyways. You want a drink?
Oh yeah, I can have a drink.
Cheers.
Cheers.
We can't say alcohol was big in the cult, can we?
No, only at the Sunday morning meetings.
Oh, yes, that's right. Actually, I remember having that. The kerfuffle before it was funny, but always the talking about giving thanks. Mm-hmm. But then you got to have a little bit of wine.
Yeah, that was. But see, the thing was, I
Where
enjoyed.
you grew up, was there wine or was it always?
It was wine.
Oh, it was wine.
It was only like fruit juice if there was an ex-alcoholic in the meeting.
Ah.
But yeah, it was wine. But the thing that I struggled with, I loved that I got to sip wine,
Yep.
but I hated, and I think like, I don't know, I honestly feel like I have a big thing with, well, I do have a big thing with like germs and stuff. I would like to say that I have mild OCD,
Yep.
but I also don't want to undermine people that are seriously diagnosed with it, because I actually believe that I do have it.
Yep, but you just haven't had the...
But I just don't want to be one of those people that throws out a diagnosis and other people are like, no, you don't understand, living with it is terrible. But I kind of do understand, like, there are things that affect my life in quite big ways. But yeah, I had a big problem with getting the cup and seeing that other people had drunk from it. Even though I knew that alcohol kills germs and stuff, you'd see people's little saliva marks. So my strategy was I would sip from directly above the handle.
Okay, yes.
Because nobody else is going to sip the cup that way.
That was my strategy as well.
Well, if we were in a meeting together, this is a problem.
We're really in trouble. Okay, because that was my strategy, because from all I'd read, because I loved reading it at those times, that was the communal cup was the quickest way to spread communicable diseases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, in the meeting, if people were sick, they would say, and they would have it last.
Yep.
But there was also someone with
Make them even more sick.
hepatitis
Oh, okay. Yep.
in the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, make them even more sick, poor things. The person with hepatitis would either not have any or have it last.
Okay.
But then I guess their immune system would have been lower too.
Maybe.
But yeah,
But
that
of
was the
course, you
thing.
wouldn't want to spread that, so...
No, I don't know if you could through a cup, could you?
I reckon you could, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyone who's medically trained might like to to provide some feedback.
Because, I mean, the crazy thing was convention, right? Like, we would still do the bread and the wine at convention, and you would have this one cup go down rows and rows and rows.
Yes, yeah.
And you'd have to pass it and sip it and pass it, and there...
And then it was refilled. Back down again.
Did you ever just pretend and not actually
Actually,
drink it?
no, I didn't. I
Really?
didn't even consider it that, because I was so happy to be at convention.
I just couldn't. But the thing was, before I was baptized, I would feel so bad just passing this cup along, like I wasn't part of it.
Yep.
And I think that is honestly what gets you into the professing and being baptized, is feeling excluded, feeling like an outcast, because you have to sit there. You can't take part in the meetings. You can't drink the wine and eat the bread. And so but you get the plate and you have to pass it to the next person. You're like, I'm not good enough to have this yet.
Yes, yeah. Maybe, yes. I think you might be right with that. Because I think, to me, the cost of actually being professing was having to take part in the meetings. But, of course, you didn't get to have the bread and the wine.
Yeah.
Which signified that every week, it signified that you were part of a special group.
But I think as well there was a stigma with not being professing or baptized, because when I met my ex-husband, he wasn't even professing yet, and he would have been 18 or 19 when I met him, and it was like, why aren't you professing? Like, what's wrong with you?
Yep.
Like, this is a red flag.
Yep.
It was, because it was like, oh, you obviously haven't committed to this thing that I've committed to,
and then towards as you were married, it was you who were having second thoughts, and
I can't really I mean, I can't speak for him. I honestly, that's the hard thing with everybody, is that you don't know how they think or feel about it, because even when you're married, if you're doubting, you don't want to discourage your partner. So I wouldn't know if he ever believed it fully, or if he questioned it and just went along with it because his family did and I did and everybody else did.
Yep.
Because you wouldn't really voice that to your partner.
Well, in my ex-partnership, we did discuss all of that. So, yeah.
I guess it's different in each
group,
marriage and your communication and that. I don't know. I feel like there's some people that just kind of go along with it because that's what their parents did and that's what's expected of them. Did you feel... how old were you when you professed?
I think it was the year after September the 11th. On September the 11th.
Oh.
So that means I would have been 14.
So quite young.
Yeah, but not very young.
Yeah.
So, because when did you profess?
I was 10, but I wanted to when I was 9.
Yeah.
So I was quite young.
Yep.
How did it feel for you when you stood up in front of everybody and you were just this different person now? You were professing.
It was. It didn't really feel like I was. It didn't feel any different.
Well, didn't you get all the love bombing afterwards? They're like, "Oh, well done, mate! Like, amazing, welcome, brother."
I wanted to. That was mortifying to me. I wanted to escape that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
But I thought that. So I grew up in a family that was seen of as incredible and amazing, and just those. Yeah. So it was sort of like expected. I believe.
I really was. When I professed, straight after, everybody was like, "Welcome, sister. Well done. It's a good thing." People
Really?
were teary, and I was like, it was a big moment for me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It was very emotional for everybody, and
Yeah.
for me, like, especially for me, because I'm so nervous and shy. I'm an introvert.
Yep.
And so standing up in front of people was such a thing. Like, my legs were shaking. I could barely bring myself to stand. Like, drawing attention to myself in a big group of people was
Something that you could hardly do.
Yeah.
Yep. Even for many years afterwards, and even now.
Yeah. Well, I still do struggle to speak even in small groups of people unless I know them well.
Yep.
Giving my testimony every week, you'd think that would have helped with it.
Yep.
But it's different because when you pray, obviously you have your eyes closed and you say your 3 sentences, and often I would think of my 3 sentences in my head first and then stand up and just say them.
Yep.
I don't know if to me it felt like everybody else was just praying authentically from nothing. They're just pulling it out of their ass, this prayer. Whereas me, I was like, okay, what am I going to say? I'm going to say I'm thankful for this, and I want to do this, and thank you for this. Did you have an idea before you stood up?
I did, yes.
The exact words, and said it in your head, or?
Pretty similar, yeah. Yep. So I think you and I reckon about 90% at least would have done the same.
Because
thing.
otherwise you'd stand up and you'd be like, thank you, Father, for...
Thankful, but I don't know what for.
Yeah, and please forgive us for
everything everything that we did for the past week, because I'm pretty certain it was pretty terrible.
Whereas everybody's prayers were quite well organised and eloquent.
Yeah.
Mine were pretty much three word, 3 lines.
3 lines.
And then it was the same with the testimonies, I'd already know in my head what I was going to say. So, and people it wasn't like a speech where you look around at everybody. You were just staring at your Bible.
Yeah.
So it was such a different atmosphere because you'd just stand up and be like, well, I was reading in Luke chapter 9 about this and where Jesus said this and I just want to be this and because I'm really, really bad and I'm really, really shit and I just want to be better. Amen. And that was basically it, you know. It was like, Jesus is great and I am bad. God is good and I am weak and I need to be better and I've been a real sinner and just saying this to all of you makes me feel better about myself and it makes you respect me more. Amen. Yeah. If anybody ever said, oh, I've had a great week and I've served God so well this week and I'm feeling really good about myself, actually. I feel like I'm really close to God. I can't even think of a sin I did this week. Everybody would be like, you arrogant. Well, they wouldn't say it. Yeah, arsehole was the word, but they wouldn't say that,
But that would have given you at least everyone about a minute or two of silence, wouldn't it? They'd be like,
yeah.
What?
Well, do you remember when, I don't know if you know, it was a preacher where I grew up. He said the word crap in his sermon and everybody was like, oh, wow.
That would have been the talk of the town for a year. But of course, the worker would have been blessed from God, so that was a new appropriate word to say.
Of course, yeah. I imagine absolutely. That. Was having the workers stay a highlight for you, or was it?
Well, I don't know, to be honest. It was a highlight to us, yes. Was it fun though? I don't know. Was it a positive highlight or was it a wow? This is different.
I feel like we were meant to be here talking about all the great things about growing up, and we're just like, okay, that was good, but it was also shit. Honestly, I do think that one great thing was that we didn't have a TV. And growing up, I resented that a little bit, I was like, oh, I don't know anything. I'm so left out. And now, I'm like, don't say anything pop culture. I won't know it. But instead of TV, I got to be outside and I got to do things. I read a lot of books. I honestly believe that I'm more intelligent than I would have been because instead of watching TV, I was reading and I was learning. I mean, that's not to say you can't learn stuff off TV, but knowing me, I just would have watched nonsense instead of documentaries and stuff.
I do think I missed The Simpsons. and perhaps some of those things for kids.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I think you're exactly right, because everyone I talk to now just has nothing good to say about free-to-air TV.
Well, I don't know what you learn from The Simpsons, but I definitely don't know the references. I would probably like to watch some of it. But yeah, I'm really glad that I had that childhood where I was using my brain, being creative a lot, being outside and running around and reading books. I have fond memories of going to the farm and playing on the farm and just running around my streets, going for long walks down the creek and that kind of stuff. And I guess some of our time was spent reading the Bible.
Yes, yeah.
Because we would feel guilty if we didn't dedicate time to God every day.
Yep.
But yeah, and learning an instrument as well. Yes. I think a lot of
professing
kids learn.
People, a lot of those kids, did learn that in the cult. Yep.
And I'm glad that I learnt an instrument, and I feel like learning to play an instrument and sing has probably helped my brain a bit. Mm-hmm. That I think is a positive.
Yep.
I do wish though that I could have listened to more music. I would have liked to have had the radio and
a much wider range. Yes, yeah. That's another negative that we're talking about.
It is. I just think that was actually a positive. Not even though other kids would be like, "Oh, you don't have a TV," yes. But as I noticed as I got older, people would still be shocked, but then they'd be like, "Oh, it's shit anyway."
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what I've found as well. So I think also from my point of view, that was also another good positive. So.
And I do think that this particular cult, because I think some other high control religions stunt people socially. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like this particular cult hasn't really stunted us socially so much.
I don't think so either, no, for some strange reason.
But I think it's helped in a way.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. I mean, it's really hard to know. I mean, it has in some ways. I've struggled to get along with a lot of people that I work with because I don't have the same values.
Yes.
Especially people that, I don't even know how to put it. You know, I don't want to discriminate or say that certain things are bad or whatever, but it's just, you know, I don't really subscribe to the watching footy, drinking beer, smoking cigarettes kind of thing. And I don't know how much I could get into that. I could definitely enjoy watching a game of football with some drinks, but I feel like
you're glad that the cult that we were part of sort of steered you away from that.
Yeah, well, I just feel like I don't even know if I'm glad. I just feel like I struggle to fit in with that culture because it's so foreign to me.
Mm-hmm.
Just the spending a crazy amount on alcohol. And actually, I'm very surprised now when I get together with my friends and they all drink, but nobody is crazy, because I always associated going to someone's house and having drinks with getting smashed. But that's not the case. A lot of people just have some social drinks and chat, and it's great. So I can fit in with that very well. I think it's more what I picture from like movies and TV shows, when all these people get together and they're just so like there's just smoke everywhere in the room and there's alcohol everywhere. That's what I picture.
Yeah.
It's not how it is.
Yeah.
But I guess I think a lot of people that I work with spend their money in very different ways to me and live their life in very different ways. So I find it really hard to relate, just because I don't spend any money on cigarettes, and I don't spend a lot of money on alcohol, and I don't buy things that I can't afford. And I think that a lot of the people that I work with in particular, and I think that might be just because I'm in retail, they spend a lot of money that they don't have. That kind of lifestyle I find very hard to relate to.
Yeah.
Because if I don't have the money for it, I don't buy it. And I think that's probably another positive of growing up in the cult, is that we don't feel like we need a lot.
Maybe. Yes, probably. I think you might be exactly right there.
It's actually really hard for me to want things, but yeah, I'm slowly getting there.
Yep.
Anyway, I actually have to go and get ready because I'm going to the little creature's birthday party. I've been invited by some of my friends, and I'm probably going to go and not drink, but it'll be a nice experience for me.
Yeah, so wrapped up in another amazing discussion.
Yeah, well, I feel like for the end of that, I was talking a lot. I've had a lot of feedback that people really enjoyed hearing from you in the podcast. So if people like hearing from this particular guest, if you have any questions for this guest that still keep their anonymity, feel free to email them through, or let me know if you'd like to hear from them again, because these are obviously very different format. They're very impromptu and informal and just us spouting from our brains.
Yes, yeah.
But,
on the fly.
yeah, I think that he has some good insights.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I'm glad that we've had a little bit of good feedback from that, but it's always great to be on this lovely podcast, and I love listening to every podcast that I'm not on as well. So
yeah, well, maybe we can do a little series together, because I think the people like you.
Oh,
so
great stuff.
Yeah, and you know, growing up in a cult, you have a strong desire to be liked. So
yeah. Oh, I'm coming back then.
Yeah, I don't know what we want to talk about with you next. Do you have any ideas of things you'd like to discuss?
No, I'll have to think on that a little bit more, but I'm certain there's a lot of things we can discuss of our varied things that we've had together, and also differences as well.
I'd really like to talk about the relationships that, or like, you know, building relationships, or how you feel about relationships that you had with people in the cult versus outside. But I feel like that's also a very hard one to talk about while keeping you anonymous.
Yes,
we just have to be careful. Well, we can keep you anonymous. It's just some people know who you are, and we don't want to offend people in your life.
Yes.
Whereas I'm not so worried about that.
Yeah.
But it is something that maybe we can somehow have a philosophical discussion about. And
yes, that we'll have to be very careful of, but we may be able to get some really good thoughts in.
Yeah,
on that as
we've already touched on it really, about being your authentic self and struggling with that. Now looking back, thinking that you knew people and had these relationships, but you don't.
Yes. Yep.
But yeah, that's maybe one for another time. And I'd also really like to learn about the male perspective being in the cult, because I know there's a lot of restrictions on women.
Yep.
No, it doesn't feel like there's so many on men.
Yes, yep.
But
I would agree with that, and I do have a lot of thoughts on that as well that I'd love to think about and talk about with you.
Especially even, you know, how cults and high control religions really seem to focus on restricting women.
Yes.
But also I would like to know how you felt as a man, like if you felt different from other people and that. So that's probably something for another time to discuss.
Yes, so well, thank you for being with us on this journey, and yes, I've really enjoyed another chat with you.
Yeah, look at you talking to the listeners. I just generally assume that there'll be no listeners to each episode. That's why I don't really address them, but you've got more optimism than me.
I think you've got a lot of lovely followers that people really enjoy listening to what you have to say.
Well, you too. We're here again with our monkey shoulder, so we'll cheers
and do
a less loud slurp than last time, because I had someone say they didn't like hearing our slurp. So.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do it again just to spite them.
Okay, cheers. That was not me. I was laughing through that slurp. So if you are bothered by that, my apologies.
I would love to hear from you again anyway. If you really hated it, please say so.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really appreciate you. If you'd like to reach out, ask any questions, vent, say whatever you need to say, even if that's getting annoyed about something I've said, email me at exculted@gmail.com. That's exculted@gmail.com. And always remember, you can walk your own way, speak your own truth, and live your own life. Bye!